Dyl, I think I make it. Did I make it?
Yes. You're talking to me right now. Where did you think you were?
Well, not where, when. Wait, what month is it?
It's the beginning of March.
Damn, I failed again.
What are you trying to do?
Do you remember when I was gone for like several months?
Yeah.
Well, I don't. So I was trying to go back to June so we could finally do Street Fighter like we promised we would do so long ago, and maybe get some answers about where I had been all those months. Clearly, my calculations were off.
Honestly, I can't with any of that right now. Okay, we're doing Street Fighter today, so no need to do whatever you just said.
No. We can't do it today. We're doing it in June.
Why wait 3 months when we can do it now?
Not next June, last June. Technically, we've already done Street Fighter, assuming I was successful.
Okay, fine. All right, whatever. What movie are we going to cover this month then?
Well, you said it's early March, right?
Right.
And the Batman is about to come out.
Right. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Hey, Dyl, you want to hear my Dark Knight impression?
No.
I am vengeance.
Let's just start the show. Okay?
I am the night.
Oh, please, for the love of God.
I am Framewreck.
What a story, Mark.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Framewreck. The cold open, written so beautifully once again by Matt Chapmond. Matt, how are you? Welcome back. It's been a few months since the Christmas special. How you holding up?
I am doing all right. I'm ready to talk about my favorite fictional character of all time.
They're going to say your favorite movie of all time.
Not my favorite movie of all time. Batman is my favorite fictional character of all time. He's
fictional.
Oh. Well, character.
No, I won't
disclose. I don't know.
If no, a real person
I don't know where the fiction ends and where real Matt begins now.
I have a feeling Batman exists somewhere out there if you want him to be. Anyway, we were supposed to do Street Fighter last month. Obviously, things schedules are busy, and we end up doing random stuff at random times. It's improvisation. It's fine. We will cover Street Fighter in a future month, next month,
or in a past month,
in some sort of time travel expanse. Anyway, we are talking about Batman and Robin, the Joel Schumacher classic. I would say maybe classic for a different reason than other movies are. I watched this for the first time today. I've seen clips of it all the time, but I've never sat down and watched the entire thing. So I'm a fresh viewer going to this, but I'm sure, Matt, you have a long history with this film and would like to just give us all the ins and outs about Batman and Robin. So I'm very excited.
So I am the opposite of a fresh viewer on this. So let me set the scene here, and we're going to start this out with something that may be controversial, and I don't care, because if you disagree, technically you're wrong, but Batman Forever is great. It's a great movie that I love, and it's actually good, and people need to shut up because they weren't there and I was there. Okay, it was awesome.
Anyway. As someone who was not there, I will tell you right now, this is not the worst Batman movie. I will tell you right now, this is not the worst Batman movie, and I think it is actually, like you said, a great movie. And not maybe not for the reasons other movies are great, maybe not in context and comparison with other Batman movies, but we will talk about it because I think this is a movie that might have gotten better with age. It might just be. I hope we are the guides to kind of make people realize what they've been missing with this movie, or what they've been looking for and what they should be looking for when watching this movie. Because I had a blast, and I cannot wait to talk about it because I am much in the pro camp of this movie.
Okay, so in 1990, what was it? 1995, I think, or 1990? Yeah, 1995. Batman Forever came out, the one right before this, Val Kilmer, which is one of my favorite Batman movies. It's actually my second favorite Batman movie. Here's the thing: is that people talk about nostalgia with Batman Forever. It was well received. Like, critics liked it. Critics liked it. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it's not going to be precise on it because there's 30 years of fanboys.
Exactly.
Who have hot takes on stuff doing Rotten Tomatoes reviews now. But it was critically acclaimed. It did very well. People loved it. Yes, Tommy Lee Jones is trying to out Jim Carrey in that movie. Personally, I think that improves the movie. But I get why a lot of people don't like that. Anyway, Batman Forever is great. Val Kilmer's great in that movie. And Val Kilmer was my favorite Batman, live action Batman for a long time. In fact, he might be my favorite live action Batman, possibly for nostalgia, but also Bob Kane, who created Batman, also thought Val Kilmer was the best live action Batman. So, he knows.
You've also got to take into account who the best Bruce Wayne is, and that might be different than who the best Batman is.
That's true.
And then finding the overall best actor who encompasses them both is another conversation entirely, too.
Which, to be fair, I think the best actor who accomplishes both, if his Batman were actually Batman, is, and I haven't seen Matt Reeves' Batman yet, and I will be seeing that on Thursday, depending on when this comes out, maybe last Thursday, I don't know.
It'll come out before Batman comes out.
Okay, so I'll be seeing.
No one will have seen it except for a select group of critics.
I will have been seeing it on. I will be seeing it on Thursday night. I already have tickets, so I haven't seen that. But Ben Affleck is actually, in my opinion, the best on both sides of the cape. If his Batman had actually been Batman instead of whatever that dumb person that they made, that dumb murderer that they had him be, I have lots of feelings about, because again, I love this character. Right, Batman and Samwise Gamgee are they're my North Stars, and so I have a lot of.
I can get on board with Samwise Gamgee for sure. I mean, top tier for me, it's Samwise Gamgee and Chewbacca. So we both have a similar love for Lord of the Rings and Samwise Gamgee. But I mean, Chewbacca for me is my Batman to you. And we covered the holiday special 2 months ago on the last episode. So it's nice that we get to reminisce about some of our favorites and the movies that other people think treated these characters unfairly. But we'll talk about it.
Right. So anyway, back to what I was saying. I've always thought that Val Kilmer was great on both sides of the cape as well, and that's one thing I always loved about him, and I always loved that movie. That's not the movie we're talking about today. The movie we're talking about today is that next one, Batman and Robin. So by this point, I am in junior high by the time Batman and Robin comes out.
Yeah, and I am a year away from birth.
You have not. Oh God.
Sorry, I was probably born by the VHS release of this. I'm guessing, maybe.
So I'm in junior high. I have the absolute biggest crush on Alicia Silverstone.
That'll do it.
And that will do it. Yes. And so I had this poster on my wall, friend, because it had I had a huge crush on Alicia Silverstone, possibly on George Clooney, but I wasn't ready to accept that yet. And Uma Thurman, loved her as well. That poster made me very happy. And
I have a question for you, Matt. I
yes.
mean, you mentioned George Clooney. Do you include the bat nips with it? Do you include the nipples on the bat suit? I know that's going to be a hot topic that if we don't cover on the show, people are going to come to the comments, angry trolls, asking why we didn't bring up the nipples. So I feel like we have to address it now. What are your opinions on that?
Okay, bat nipples. I get where he's coming from, because that whole bat suit is kind of buck wild. It's very interesting because it's not realistic in any way that he would be able to fight in that thing. Number one. Number two, the purpose was he was trying to get this Greek god chiseled out of marble look. Okay. And that was legitimately what he was going with. That's why the nipples. That's why the 12 pack or whatever's on his chest, on his stomach, abdomen there. So that's why it's so anatomical. Which I assume, and a lot of people always give this movie some guff for, and maybe today we wouldn't call it guff, but back in the day there was some guff about how homoerotic it was, which today we might have a different conversation than we had back then. We not being me, I never claimed
society
like that,
as a whole.
Society as a whole. The basically the the early internet conversations is what this was, and just conversations amongst friends. So. A lot of very homoerotic. And I think that also plays into this whole Greek god thing. Because that's that whole I get it. There is a aesthetic that I think that was successful, although I think that, and really that's the root of the problem with this movie, is an idea that doesn't serve the movie. And that's what most of the problems come from, ideas that make sense but don't serve the movie at all.
Gotcha.
So yes, bat nipples, I get what he's coming from. I mean, they were on the bat suit in Batman Forever as well, just not nearly as pronounced.
Yeah, I was gonna say I did not notice. So
yeah, not nearly as pronounced. They were there, just barely. not
Gotcha,
like
gotcha.
not like as nearly as pronounced as they are in this movie. Anyway, so I love Lisa Silverstone. I love Batman. My mom watches ER all the time, and I watch it with her. So George Clooney, I'm like, this is going to be the best movie ever. And Batman Forever was still my favorite after watching it, but this movie, once it came out on VHS, let me tell you, I wore that thing out like that. I watched it so many times, not having any idea that it was bad, like just legitimately loving it. I then one day, so I'm talking to my cousin about Batman movies and how much I love them, and I love the Michael Keaton movies. Although the more I know about, here's the weird thing: the more I love the Batman comics, because back when I used to watch, because that came out in '89, I was 5 when the first Batman came out, and I watched it back then. But so like that, this character had kind of always been with me.
Yeah, just always around. Yeah,
Just always around, and I loved him back then. But even before that, I'd watched the Adam West, the reruns of the Adam West show, which I have, which I got a box set on Blu-ray for Christmas, and I'm very happy about that. So anyway, sorry.
It's okay. We love the tangents when they relate to our personal lives. Like we know the viewers I want to get to the point, get to the nitty gritty, and get to Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I mean, we got to reminisce about why this character is important.
Believe me, we'll get there.
We will get there. I was gonna say my first was Dark Knight, so like I'm of that whole new generation. But that's also like, just such a monumental film, just in film history. To also just be like the first Batman movie that like I just loved and appreciated. So I was only 10, so like I get with the idea of like just growing up with this character, being such an important figurehead, especially because this was pre-MCU. This was like right when the MCU was starting, was in 2008, but it didn't get really connected till 2012. So like Dark Knight like and Batman along with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, like those were my two that I could like cling on to and be like, these are my heroes, like these are my childhood heroes,
So let me be clear about something here. When you were 10, when I was 10, Batman and Robin came out. When you were 10, The Dark Knight came out. We had different experiences at 10. But yeah, you definitely got the better movie at that time. But mine was definitely made for someone more my age. I could tell you that. Batman Forever, or Batman and Robin. Anyway, no, that was Batman Forever. Batman Forever came out when I was 10. So actually, I'm better with the balance, but still, not the point. Moving on. Anyway, the Michael Keaton, the Tim Burton Michael Keaton Batman movies, I've watched those my entire life, and I've always loved them. But the more I get into Batman, the more I understand him as a character, the less I like those movies. Because as flawed as Batman and Robin is, and I don't see many of the flaws that most people see with Batman Forever, but the flaws with Batman Forever, they are far more comic accurate than the Tim Burton Batman movies are, which are admittedly aesthetic, it's his with Burton, it's like he likes dark things and Batman's dark, and that kind of is like that's the connection there. It's not so much the character. So
well, I do think just in general, like while we're on that note, I think the aesthetic of just Batman Forever, like these Schumacher movies and Batman and Robin and kind of the Burton movies, just like that whole 4-film arc is just, it really speaks true to the nature just of a comic book story, like you said, with the design and the different set pieces and the colors. It's like it's so foreign that it makes it feel like it's something right out of the page, whereas like growing up, like in my case, I was so used to the realistic Nolan Bush era like Batman movies, and that's just such a different vibe that it's like watching these movies back. I feel like a lot of people in my generation specifically are very critical of that because they're like, it looks so fake, it looks so non-realistic. But I'm like, but that's also what that kind of captures the spirit of the comics even more so. If you're looking for a good adaptation, these might be better than like a Dark Knight, even though that might be just a better all-around movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I definitely understand it. Yeah, it's because really what it comes down to, and this is kind of a conversation I have a lot, which is good adaptation versus good film. Ultimately, with these type of things, I'm looking for a good film. If it's a good adaptation as well, that's a plus. But if they make, it's the thing I have with Lord of the Rings, is there are people who are still angry about things that were changed in Lord of the Rings that would have made it worse films, regardless of how good the books are and how they needed to be in the books the way they were. They would have been worse films if they had included everything that these people wanted them to include, or left them the way they were. I say, if you can make a great movie and be true, great. But if you're making a movie, I say a movie is first. That's why The Shining is a great movie, despite not being, being very different than the book.
Exactly.
So anyway. Yes, I think great movies is the thing. The Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are maybe more faithful adaptations to certain eras of the Batman comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, and especially because I was a kid, that was kind of what I was looking at anyway. So I never knew any better. Anyway, so that is why my experience with this movie is very different, because I watched it so many times. I've watched it my entire life. I was saying, when I was talking to my cousin, that's where I was. Tangents, many tangents. I'll be done with this part soon, I promise. When I was talking to my cousin, he was saying, I was talking about how much I loved those movies, all four of them, and he was like, even the Schumacher ones. And at the time, I was like, I don't know what that means, because I wasn't the movie buff that I am today. And I was like, well, he's like, the ones Tim Burton didn't make, you like those as well? It's like, yeah, Batman Forever is the best one. What are you talking about? It's like, what about Batman and Robin? I was like, Batman was great. Wait, is Batman and Robin not great? And that was the first time that I'd ever heard that it might not be good. It wasn't until I was an adult and I went back and watched him and go, oh, yeah, no, this is not good. This is not good. Like, it's great, but it's not good. Like, so that's my very long history here with this movie.
Yeah, and it's just so hard using the word good or great in this context, because like this is a show about movies that are so bad they're good, or we say this is just a bad movie or this is just a good movie, and it's so weird seeing how many different lines it crosses. So we'll eventually come up with that verdict by the end, because we didn't really explain how the show works, but at the end we will determine if it belongs on the Mount Trashmore of terrible movies, and we will score it and like give it all that fun showbiz pizzazz. So I'm very excited to talk more about it now and actually get into the movie itself.
Yes. Okay. So, so this is your first time seeing it. Can you give us a brief synopsis of this film?
Yeah, so carrying over from the last one, Robin is officially kind of part of the team, but still kind of earning his stripes in terms of their teamwork. It is very much a bromance movie, more so than a romance, which I actually kind of appreciate more, because the last one was very much, this steamy romance with Nicole Kidman. Here it's more just like this bromance and trying to come to terms with, that partnership. But also there's, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, who's, trying to freeze the city over. There's Poison Ivy, who gives death kisses and poison kisses. And, there's just, it's basically Batman and Robin trying to navigate their teamwork in regards to all these villains and trying to figure out where the boundaries lie, and jealousies get in the way. It's hard to kind of come up with just one cohesive, straight through line plot of just like what this movie is in a sentence. It's more, if you want to go for the Batman and Robin angle, like that's it. It's them, kind of just figuring out their teamwork. But there's plot lines with Alfred, who's sick and they need to get a cure. But it's Mr. Freeze, who has his wife chronogenic. I don't know the word. Frozen.
Cryogenically. Well, I wouldn't even say this is cryogenically. She's floating in water in some vague sci-fi way. Yeah.
But yeah, he's got his wife captured because he wants to create a cure for her, but it's also going to be the cure for Alfred. But then Poison Ivy's involved. It's a lot of different elements, and I feel like a lot of these movies with multiple villains are that. Like, there's not really one solid plot. It's just a bunch of other plots that kind of all weave together. But it is entertaining and it is interesting, and it is in that kind of homoerotic, neon-esque vibe the whole way through. Yeah, I mean, what would be your summary as someone who has watched it many times and can actually give a more cohesive answer? As
I would say that you're spot on, because the answer is, if I were to give a summary, I would say which part, because every 5 minutes it's the summary is something else. Like, it's different. Right. It's a different thing happening. No, that's perfect. It's about friendship, but also family, but also trusting each other, but also partnerships. It's about relationships a lot, but also ice puns.
Ice puns. So many ice puns.
I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy.
All right, so some production notes. This is written by Kiva Goldsman and directed by Joel Schumacher, as we mentioned before. This was after the success of Batman Forever. WB fast-tracked this, breaking the tradition of a 3-year gap between sequels. Right. So they wanted to, Schumacher wanted to pay homage to the 1960s television series, the campiness of that, and the work of Dick Sprang. one thing I really liked, and this is the next little bit here, is that Mr. Freeze's backstory, most of it, is based on the Batman the Animated Series episode Heart of Ice, which is one of the greatest episodes of one of the greatest animated series of all time. Okay, so like as far as behind the scenes stories, the number one, the big thing is the recasting of Val Kilmer from Val Kilmer to George Clooney.
Just one movie.
Yeah. Val Kilmer, there's various accounts. Part of it was they fast-tracked it because it was, they wanted to get this done real fast. Val Kilmer did not reprise his role. There are various accounts for why. Most of them include scheduling conflicts, but there is discussion about his issues with his relationship with Schumacher. David Duchovny and William Baldwin were both considered to replace Kilmer, but Clooney ultimately was cast because Schumacher thought he could provide a lighter interpretation.
Cool.
Which I think, here's the thing, is that I was thinking about this, and I think he does, except, like, I think he does, but he does, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. When he's Bruce Wayne, and he's kind of, they always do this close-up on him, and he's always, like, got this mingled, happy, sad face on him, and it always, to me, it always feels heavier than Kilmer, just because I don't know, there's something, and not. I think Clooney was great in this. He was horribly miscast. I thought that he was not the right choice for this.
Well, I was going to say the reason I think this would be valid to be one of the weakest is because I think the titular characters, Batman and Robin, I think are the weak points of the movie. I honestly think, and especially Robin, which we'll get to, but like I don't know if that's a popular opinion. Again, I'm going off of nothing, having just seen it, so I'm interested to know if my opinions are what other people feel as well. But yeah, it's interesting because I think in a role like Batman, you have to be extraordinary, and I feel like he was serviceable. But in a role like Batman, a serviceable is underwhelming, and I think that's the thing. Is he's a perfectly serviceable Batman, Bruce Wayne. He does the job like fine. He convinces me he's this billionaire philanthropist playboy guy, like whatever. And he is fine in the action sequences, but it's always fine. It's never like extraordinary. It's never that extra mile. It's never anything that like Christian Bale does, and you're like, oh, that's so cool. Or like even like you were saying, Ben Affleck will do something, and you're like, wow, that was a really great choice. Like things like that.
I wish he hadn't been murdering every person in that scene during it, but yeah.
It's another show, another time, Matt. That's what I'll defend. But maybe for different reasons. I don't know. Well, I'll have to revisit that someday. I have not seen the Ultimate Edition, so that might help. But I don't know. But we're back on this film. But I think the two leads are kind of a reason why it's bogged down, because I think everything around the two of them is much more interesting than what's going on with the two of them.
Absolutely. Okay. So this is the part that makes me extremely sad, because I didn't know this until today when I happened upon this information. And that is that for the part of Mr. Freeze, these three men were considered for it. Ed Harris, Anthony Hopkins, and Patrick Stewart.
Wow.
Can you imagine an Ed Harris as Mr. Freeze? And it wouldn't have been the Mr. Freeze we got in this movie, but a legitimate Mr. Freeze. Ed Harris has a legitimate Mr. Freeze. It's the only thing I want now, Dyl. It's all I want. It's one of those
weird things where it's like, does it make this movie? I think it would make this movie worse, but him better. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the reason, if he was good, but in this movie, I don't think it would work.
It would not work in this specific movie.
I'd want to see him be Mr. Freeze in a different movie.
Okay,
like, give it to me now. Honestly,
that's actually a good point, because they were considered for the role before. They rewrote the script to accommodate Arnold's casting. It was they had a different script until they cast Arnold, and then it became something else. There's not really details on, or I don't know the details on what exactly it was before, but I would love to have seen that version where Ed Harris or Anthony Hopkins or Patrick Stewart. Really, Ed Harris is the one that I think would like just kill that role.
Because I also think like Anthony Hopkins is synonymous with Hannibal Lecter, and Patrick Stewart with both Picard and Professor X. It's like Ed Harris doesn't have like that one role that everyone in the universe like just can be like, oh yeah, him. So I would love to see Ed Harris as that. And honestly, is he too young at this point to do it someday?
No, because really he might have been too young. He might have been too young back then. He's definitely he's a reasonable age to be Mr. Freeze at this point. So Matt
Reeves, if you're doing a follow-up.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. 100%. I'm on board.
Assuming the new one's good. I don't know. I will
I
see
hope
it
it is. I
when
hope
this
it
is airing
is.
tonight. So yeah.
Yeah. Schumacher decided that Mr. Freeze must be big and strong, like he was chiseled out of a glacier. Again, he is chiseling his characters out of things.
Which makes
He
no
was.
sense for the ice thing. You're
It
chiseling
it
ice.
makes sense for that,
Some
but
second ice
he chiseled his
conversation.
heroes out of marble, and he's chiseling his villain out of a glacier. But yeah, no, it's it makes sense. That last half, the first half is the opposite of Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze is supposed to be frail. That's why he has the.
Oh,
I mean, that's part of why he has the armor. Like it's a thing. I mean, he
yeah.
has it to keep him cold, but also like he can't fight. Like he's not going to
It's supposed
fight
to
in
be
his
the
own
idea
battles.
that
Like,
like you touch him and he shatters like ice. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
like an ice.
So it's yeah, it's eh, I don't know. That's
You know the scene in Snowpiercer where they freeze the arm and they just like
yes.
and it just shatters away. That should be how brittle Mr. Freeze is. That like actual imagery, but no, we get the opposite. We
Matt
get the
Reeves
Hulk
needs to
in ice.
call us so we can
Matt Reeves,
talk
we got
about
ideas.
our
Snowpiercer.
Ed Harris led.
Picture this: a Batman set on a train like Snowpiercer, and it's just going through like the Arctic. It looks like the whole world is frozen over. It's just Bruce Wayne on a train with all these Gotham residents trying to get away, and Mr. Freeze. Oh, I think it'd be perfect. Snowpiercer Batman crossover. Let's do it. Let's get David Diggs, like all the people from the show in. And, like, let's make it happen. Bong Joon-ho can direct with
Oh,
Matt Reeves.
let's do it.
We got it. Pitch it.
Okay, so that brings us to the meat of the show, the thing we're all here for. What makes this movie great? So
ironically or unironically,
well, I mean that's the thing is that this movie is we're not talking about the bad why this movie's bad. We're talking about why those bad things make this movie great.
because
That's
this is
the
not
whole
an
thing.
Academy Award
That's our
winning
show.
caliber movie. This is not your Nolan's. This is just
Right.
not what what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about why
Right.
we love it. And yeah, it's like I said, I think the actual goodness, like the great, like genuinely great stuff, is the actual design of just the visuals and just the fact that it has a unique source of style and sense of style. I think that is what sets all four of these movies in this era apart from all the other Batman that we've
Right.
seen, is just how unique visually and aesthetically it is. And that I don't think we'll ever, look at it
Right.
and say that was bad. I mean, some people might not like it, but I genuinely think that is the good stuff.
I agree. I think that all four of these movies have you can think of these movies and see them. Like you can like there's no doubt the movie that you're looking at and that this is the setting that they're set in. And I think that's brilliant. I think that is a truly great thing about these movies.
Whereas if
the
you
aesthetic is so identifiable.
If you put three stills from Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises together, and you say, "Hey, can you tell me which is which movie?" Maybe you aren't able to tell. But if you put a still from '89, Forever, and Batman and Robin together, you can probably tell. And I think that's a testament.
And they are going to look like they come from the same world, but you're going to be able to tell that which movies which. Yes, I completely agree. And that's something truly great about this. Now, what makes this the other kind of great? Let's start with the logic of this movie. Okay, so first thing I have here is, and this is just beginning of the movie. I wonder, and maybe you can answer this. Why did they have ice skates built into their boots if they did not know that they were going to fight Freeze until they were on their way to get there? They didn't know they were.
The
they
critic
were
brain
told
in my
about
brain is saying it's a movie and it's a comic book movie. That's why. No, because it's fucking cool. Why not?
Yeah.
If he has everything else in his car and his gadgets and stuff, like why can't he have ice skates that are built into his feet?
And
that's
the correct answer, because that's what I was thinking while watching this movie. It's like, okay, it doesn't make any sense because they were on their way to this thing, and then they were told, "Oh, it's this guy named Freeze. He freezes things," and they're like, and then. But when they got there, they had ice skates already built into the thing. It is cool, and that's why. And I would never ever change that because it's great. Because of course they have ice skates built into their shoes. This is an ice. They're a hockey player. The bad guys are hockey players right now. And yeah, so that's great. I love how he freezes the dinosaur for so long, and the bad guys just stand there and watch him freezing a big giant dinosaur and do nothing. And then they sky surf on the rocket doors all the way down to the Earth, which
I love. I mean, the visuals don't really hold up, but I mean, like it's a cool sequence. It's one of those things. It's like, why hasn't anyone thought of that? Just like surfing in space.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and it's really cool, and it's so 90s. Like, I feel like you definitely wouldn't do that anymore, and it doesn't
maybe
make
an animated
a whole
form, and that's about it. Like you can pull off some of this in animated, but you couldn't do this live action because the budget would be too good for this. Honestly,
right? Well, and it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And again, we're gonna have to. We're throwing out the logic anyway. But since we're talking about the logic of this movie, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Those doors were perfect surfboards, that they stayed on their feet and all of that. But it's just so 90s, and fits in that era so well in a way that if you saw that in a movie today, people would go, "What the heck is this?" But I guarantee no one in the 90s was like, "I don't understand what's happening." They were all like, "Okay, yeah," because it's the 90s. We all sky surfed. It was fine.
Exactly.
I also really like that the 4 worst security guards in the world walk beside Pamela Isley, going, "You can't go over there," while doing absolutely nothing to stop her from getting to Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And then Bruce calls them overprotective, which I absolutely love. There's a part also that, again, this is all the logic stuff, and we can throw this all out. But there's a part where Poison Ivy shows up at the charity auction. You remember that?
Yeah.
When they show up there in gorilla suits, her and Bane. She's dancing, and then everybody just kind of turns to look at the dancing gorilla. But that makes absolutely no sense to me, because there's like the people dancing up there all night. And she had like I don't know. This is the part that, this is just me nitpicking, but she has like the stuff, the pollen that she can blow at people to get them to do what she wants.
The pink stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And it would have been so easy to have that go through the crowd and have that be the reason they turned to look at her while she's dancing there.
Right.
But they didn't. They just all suddenly turned around. Like they sensed the gorilla dancing behind
just
them.
Have the impulses, yeah. I guess, yeah. Sometimes it's just in the air, Matt. Sometimes they just know. Maybe she did do the pollen thing and we just didn't see it.
Maybe, except that there was a visual representation of that every other time in this movie.
True.
But who knows? That's just a nitpicky thing. Back credit card. Where do the invoices go? Dylan, where do the invoices go?
I don't have the answers. You're the expert, man. I have no idea.
I don't know.
The invoices go to me, actually, even as my negative 1-year-old in the theaters. Yeah.
Did you notice when how long his back credit card was good for?
No.
It said forever.
Batman Forever.
Yeah.
There you go.
It says back credit card, or back credit card, and then down at the bottom where it says the expiration date or whatever, it said forever. And then last thing I have on logic here before we get into like the fun character stuff. Poison Ivy can control plants. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why her plant chair ate her. It made no sense. She'd been sitting in it all night, and suddenly I don't know.
So maybe there's like an exception. I don't know. Maybe they had a fight. I don't know.
Maybe they had a fight.
Maybe they were just on bad terms.
All right, so that's all the logic stuff. Now we get into the fun stuff about just what makes this movie great. Yeah. And the thing that makes this movie great is the villains.
Yeah. I think that's with a lot of Batman movies. It's like you have to have good villains, or at least memorable ones. However you define good, because I know, like Jim Carrey, good. Heath Ledger, good. Jack Nicholson, good. Tommy Lee Jones, we might be a little split on that, because you think good, I think bad. But what about these two villains? These two main villains, Matt? What are your opinions on them? Are they good villains?
Okay. I have a lot. Okay. We'll get to that. We'll get to the answer of that
loaded question. Question. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's start with Poison Ivy. She is the closest to comic accurate of any of these characters, or of any of the villains in this movie. She is pretty well pretty like she's represented well. Like Uma Thurman played her well. I'm not displeased by the performance or the take on the character, because it does there is a lot to like about her performance and about the way they did it. I do wonder why she burned down a building full of plants and animals when her thing is that she's all about nature. That makes me that's the thing about one thing I like about her. Okay, so her origin in this movie is now stay with me here, is equal parts. Now that you've seen all four Batman.
I've seen all four. Yeah.
We've seen all four.
I've seen
her
all
origin,
of them except for Adam West. So I've seen like them all.
Oh, you should see the Adam West movie.
And the animated ones, but yeah, I will. But I've seen the Burtons, I've seen the Nolans, I've seen the Snyders, so I'm caught up.
The Adam West Batman movie is so good, and it's campy. Now you thought this movie was campy. That movie is campy. Correct. I love it.
But anyway. Tell me about Poison Ivy.
Anyway, sorry. Okay, her origin in this movie is equal parts Joker, Riddler, and Catwoman from this series. It's like they took those three origins, fell into chemicals.
Pushed by a man.
Pushed by a man, was revived by the thing she turned into, and was a unappreciated scientist with raggly hair who had a glow up as soon as they died.
It's like the best of playlist. It's like the greatest hits of villain origin stories. Like
right. It's like they're like these are the things that we know are working. We're gonna do these. Which I think is really cool. She also does a Framewreck staple, which is an exposition dump, right at the beginning, where no need to waste time on her backstory when she could just state directly everything into the camera that we would need to know up until that point.
Yeah, it saves us the trouble of being smart audiences and trying to figure out some of the.
And here's the thing: in this movie, we don't need that exposition dump. Is fine.
Absolutely.
We're not here for this all to work together properly. We're here to enjoy the people who were chiseled out of things and are making fun bad puns. How do you feel about Poison Ivy?
Yeah, I think she's not the most memorable. Obviously, I think we all know who the most memorable villain in this is. But I think she honestly does feel like a great, accurate representation of what that character should be. And I think she plays it fine. I mean, I've always been a fan of Uma Thurman's and everything. Pulp Fiction and The Producers were the two just growing up that I loved her in. Not growing up, I didn't watch Pulp Fiction as a kid, but my teen years, I should say. I guess you could show a kid Pulp Fiction if you mute it. But yeah, anyway, she's great, and I was happy to see it. I don't think she stands out only because of who she's competing against, but I definitely think she's one of the more actual just good performances in this movie.
Yeah.
His name is Bane.
A laundry service that delivers. Wow.
Bane. This is the part of the movie that I soured on earliest. Because I hated it from the beginning, and here's why.
Yeah.
Because and this is why I understand when people get mad about accuracy for characters, because there's certain things that I feel like I don't have a problem with changing a character as long as you keep the spirit of the character. I did not have a problem with things like for instance, Tom Hardy's Bane, which is not completely comic accurate. There's a lot of things that are different about it, but he was in keeping with the spirit of Bane.
Right.
This keeps literally only that he's big, pumped with venom, and wears a mask.
Right.
Which is the aesthetic thing. That's all they kept. Bane is actually a tactical genius. That's his whole thing.
We don't get that from this at all.
No, you don't.
This is the big hulking sidekick. That's about it. He is the Hulk in this sense, just a lot less powerful and just not as memorably iconic in terms of his presentation or his visual aesthetic. He's just nothing. To the point where I forgot he was even in this when we started talking.
Right, and that's the thing that the Tom Hardy Bane gets absolutely correct. He's the whole tactician. He's a genius. He knows what he's doing. He's He's not some servant. I remember when they first announced that Bane was going to be in Dark Knight Rises. One of my friends said, "Oh, so that must mean that they're going to bring Poison Ivy in too." And I was like, "No, he's not. He's not Poison Ivy's sidekick. That's not his job. He's a great character who has great who can fight on his own, and he's very smart." And like, I had to tell them all about Bane, but so they don't get the spirit of Bane at all, and that's the first thing. And I get it. The movie you're making, it's fine, but like it, I would have loved to have seen. I would love to see a more comic accurate Bane, because while I like the Tom Hardy version, it's also not like, it's true to the spirit, but it's not like. First of all, he's South American, and they did set that scene in South America, but they used a very white guy to become Bane. And Tom Hardy is doing some sort of a Sean Connery thing in that. So I would love to see the wrestling mask Bane with everything that, basically I would love to see a combination of the Tom Hardy character and the Batman and Robin aesthetic.
Cool.
Those things. That would be great to me.
Cool. There you go.
So,
Matt Reeves, that's also adding to the list. So we're doing Ice on a Train with Mr. Freeze as Ed Harris. Ed Harris is Mr. Freeze, and we're doing comic accurate Bane with the Tom Hardy character choices.
Call us Matt Reeves.
We're
free, and if we're not free, we'll become free.
We'll even just change Matt's last name so he can be Matt Reeves and just direct it for you. Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. I'm not attached to this last name.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, all of that being said about my feelings about this version of Bane in a trench coat and a fedora as a disguise is possibly the very best thing about this movie.
Very true. That's a good image. That's a good image.
I love it so much because it makes me laugh the first time we see it, because he's like holding her stuff, like he just shows up, and it's like, okay, that's funny. But then they later cut back to them like arriving from South America, and he's like holding her bags, and he's got the fedora and the trench coat, as though they're fooling anyone. Oh, I love it so much. It reminds me of, like, it makes me think about like the Ninja Turtles when Raphael would go out in a trench coat and a fedora and expect anyone to not realize that he was not a person.
Right.
Yes. So yes, that is one of my absolute favorite things about this movie is him in that fedora and trench coat.
But now we have the last villain to talk about, and that is, I think, the main talking point to this movie, and the reason why I genuinely think it is great in terms of, like, I will watch this over and over again because of this, and that is Arnold as Mr. Freeze.
Let's kick some ice.
Matt, what is there to say?
I will start by saying that this is the worst comic casting of casting of a comic book hero of all time. However, it is also possibly the most entertaining casting of a comic book character.
It's the best and worst, all the mixed in one, all snowballed into one. There's another Ice reference. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this, Matt?
Okay. So I kind of talked about my thoughts on him as a character, his characterization, the way that they played him. They definitely went another way. I would have loved an Ed Harris. They went with an Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Can you feel it coming? The icy cold of space.
It's obviously wrong. It's obviously not a correct
wrong
adaptation of this character. But it's so good because the ice puns, and we're going to get to those. I've got a whole section.
I was going to say we might as well just rattle them off, Matt, whenever you're ready, because I just think, we're all going to talk about our favorite lines and worst lines of dialogue. I mean, are these amongst yours? Because I think they are mine.
I've got a lot of quotes that I loved from this because the dialogue is a part. Like, we're going to cut, like, that's part of what makes this movie great is the dialogue. I've got a whole thing, but I do have a list of ice puns that I love. So yes, we can go ahead and.
Let's just say them now because I would have said them later, but I think it's good to do them all now while we're talking about Arnold. As you know, just to keep the show along. Let's just talk about the ice puns. Let's go through them.
So we'll also get this out of the way. One of our one of our things we do at the end is worst line of dialogue in a movie. I'm just gonna say mine because it is an ice pun.
It
and
is mine is one as well. Go ahead.
And that is, what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
And then he freezes a dinosaur, and that's so good.
Mine is, I love the Iceman cometh.
The Iceman cometh.
Stay cool, bird boy.
Stay cool, bird boy.
Also, when Mr. Freeze is put into Arkham, we get a nice little string of ice puns, which is one of the guards says, "Welcome home, Frostface," and the other one, which one of them is Jesse the Body Ventura, who used to be a wrestler and then became the governor of Minnesota.
Interesting. A lot of governors in this movie, huh?
Yeah. But the other guard says, "You're the common cold, and we're the cure." And then when he decides he's going to escape, he says, "Allow me to break the ice. My name is Freeze. Learn it well. It is the chilling sound of your doom."
All right, everyone, chill.
I always I like the line also. You must winterize your pipes.
That is literally the next line on my list here.
It was in my brain. That was one actually my roommate called when we were watching. I was watching. He walked in and he just hears, "Did I hear that right?" I was like, "Yeah, you did."
Always winterize your pipes.
You must winterize your pipes. Yeah. So
Tonight, hell freezes over.
that's a good one too. That's a good one.
Freeze in hell, Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Winter has come at last. This is a Batman line, which is, I think it was Batman line or maybe Robin, who says, "Hey, Freeze, the heat is on." Which makes me, because what he does at that point is flip the very visible switch that says freeze and heat up to heat, and I wonder why Freeze's lair has a heat option at all.
Right.
Like, I don't.
Again, logic, Matt. Matt, there's so much logic that just is not there.
Breezy. I'm feeling hot.
I find that unlikely.
So yeah, that's our ice puns, and those are the ones that I just caught while I was typing, and
Right.
I'm
There's
sure
way more.
There's a lot
there's
more.
way more. I want to play a drinking game with this movie, and it's every time there's an ice pun or anything along the lines of coolness or snow or ice or icicle or winterize, just take one and then just you'd be dead in 30 minutes.
Yes, it's fantastic.
And the thing is, he's a prominent presence in the whole movie too. It's not like that he comes and goes. It's like he's the top billed actor in this movie.
Right.
If you look at the billing, like he is hit as Arnold Schwarzenegger in Batman and Robin. So he definitely, they milked it for all he was worth, or iced him for all he was worth. So yeah, I really think this is, like you said, one of the worst castings ever, but maybe one of the most iconic for the wrong reasons. But just like, there's nothing else like it. There really is. And the design too,
agree.
like you said, like it's totally wrong, but it's like, but you can never unsee it.
The makeup is really good though. Like when they show him close up, and like
For sure.
he's wearing a bald cap because he's Arnold and he refused to shave his head. The makeup is very good in this movie.
Yeah.
So it does have that. Okay, now let's talk about the heroes for a second.
Yeah.
I mentioned I had the biggest crush on Lisa Silverstone.
Yeah. I will say, Matt, I have not seen her in a ton of stuff, and to be honest, she didn't really do it for me in this one. I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not, but I was not the biggest fan of her in this one. From an acting standpoint.
No, she's bad. She's very bad in this movie.
Okay, just making sure I wasn't missing something, because I know you said you were fond of her. So
my feelings for Lisa Silverstone were not based on her acting skill as much as I loved her.
Yes, okay. That's fair.
But I had a big crush on her, and that's not to say she's a bad actress. I mean, she is good in movies that are suited for her. Clueless, she's great. I don't think there's any other person at that time that would have been able. Have you seen Clueless?
No.
Dude, watch Clueless. It's great.
End stream now. We've already hit an hour anyway. Like, it just ended now. And
we're gonna go. We're gonna come back after he's watched.
We're already
Clueless.
running over anyway.
No, it's great. It's an adaptation of Emma.
Yeah, no, I know it.
Set in the 90s. It's great. She's great. Everybody's great. Brittany Murphy. It's great. Watch it. Cool. I promise. It's good. You'll like it.
On the list.
Anyway, yes. 20. How old are you, Dyl? You were born in
23.
20. Okay.
In a month,
23-year-old
24,
Dylan
so like I'm closer.
definitely wouldn't have had the same reaction to her in this movie as 13-year-old, however old I was when I watched this movie. Matt, because we were at very different stages, and
Right.
she was a presence in my life already. I already had a poster on my wall before I got the Batman and Robin poster.
So I'm sure she was a real highlight, and she probably still is, just rewatching it for you.
She's the main reason, other than Batman himself, just the fact that it was a Batman movie, that I watched this so many times, because
Cool.
I had a crush on her. Like,
There's
wanted to
nostalgia
watch
for
the
you.
at least the Silverstone movie. Her Batsuit has heels. Discuss.
Again, why not? I mean, honestly, for this one, it makes a little less logical sense, just because, like, I mean, I've never walked in heels, I've never done anything in heels, but I can imagine it's more difficult. And stopping crime and being a masked vigilante is probably not easier in heels either. So,
Right.
yeah, it's an odd choice. It's an odd choice.
I figured the running would be hard.
The running, the walking, the flipping, the jumping off of buildings, the gliding.
So in this movie, Batgirl, they change her origin, which bugs me a little because of how much I like Barbara Gordon in the comics.
Yes.
They change her from Barbara Gordon to Barbara Pennyworth. I don't know if they gave her a last name.
I don't think they gave her that last name, but like she's related to Alfred.
She is Alfred's.
I do like
niece.
it because I do think the Alfred stuff is strong. I've always liked his character, and I think they finally were like, let's give him like a big purpose in this movie.
Oh yeah,
I like that because it kind of ties her in, it ties Robin in. It doesn't make it romantic either, which I kind of like also. And they just kind of tie it all together. Robin, the story with Robin as well, and Bruce, just with Alfred. I like the Alfred stuff. I think it's good.
Yeah, I like the Alfred stuff too, and I'm gonna mention a little bit more about him later, just because for reasons. But I like the Alfred stuff, and it makes sense. But there's the part of me that loves the comic books and stuff and loves the the animated series and all of that goes, man, I just want a live action, like a good live action Barbara Gordon who does like who's useful, who does what she's supposed to do, and who's the correct character, which we're gonna get. We're getting a Batgirl movie coming up. So
with oh man, what's her name?
In the Heights. Yeah, I don't remember her name.
I'm gonna find her name. Keep talking about that.
I'm excited about that because she was great in the Heights. It was
Leslie Grace. I didn't even need it.
Yes.
Leslie Grace.
So yes, I'm very excited about that, and I think that she'll be a great Barbara Gordon. So very excited about it. Anyway, so they changed that, which is fine. It did lead to one of my least favorite movie tropes.
Oh boy.
Is when people break into a computer by getting a correct password by looking around a desk. Yes. Which is just, and especially when that thing that they are trying, because generally it's it's a big deal thing that they're trying to break into, and they're like, let's look around.
The password isn't just a name of someone. That is
password is a name of a person, this person, and that's written on here. I say that as a person who, if you looked around my desk, you could definitely get into one of my accounts just by guessing.
You're not getting to mine unless my password was MacBook Pro, so I'm good.
And she does that, and it's such a short password, Peg. And it's
you already forgot it.
Yeah, and it's
good password.
The thing is, you don't have to remember it because it's written on a picture on his desk.
I'm gonna name my next password Blue Yeti in volume.
But here's the thing: it's not just protecting his home computer. This is Bruce and Dick's secret. Like, it's their secret identity. It's Batman and Robin's everything about them protected by 3 letters that are written on his desk.
Yeah, that's another logic jump though that is so frustrating because it's like there could have been a more creative way to do that.
Yes.
Or just don't even have a password. Just make it the fact that she got there in the first place is like the tough part, and then just have her find out that way to make it such a cop out having the name right there. Yeah, I get what you mean.
All right, we talked about Batman, we've talked about Batgirl, let's talk about Robin. You had some...
Yeah, I just think he's awful. And that's not to be rude toward the actor, but I think it's like, he in Forever is what took me out of that. Him and Tommy Lee Jones, and now here it was just kind of like a double down. It doesn't work. I get what they're trying to do in terms of like the relationship between the two of them and the fact that like he's always told no, but it's like, as an audience member, we know like if he kisses that girl, he's gonna die of the poison. And it's like, we're supposed to kind of side with him when he rebels against Batman, but at the same time we're like, no, but you should not do that. We're siding with Batman. It's hard.
Right.
It's hard to get on board with him, and I don't know if it's the performance or just the choice or the dialogue. Obviously, the dialogue's a problem, but like, yeah.
I agree. It's partly dialogue, and the dialogue's bad. And I will say that he has been good in things.
Okay, I don't think I've seen him in much.
He's been good in. There are things that he's really good in. There's things that he's not good in. The movie that that Al Pacino won,
Scent of a Woman.
Scent of a Woman, which I think is a great performance. A lot of people hate that he won that. It's great. Chris O'Donnell is his supporting character.
Yeah, he was also on NCIS for a long time. Three Musketeers, Scent of a Woman. Yeah, Cookie's Fortune. Okay, yeah, he's been in some stuff.
And there's some stuff he's really great in. There's some stuff he's not. He's not like a fantastic actor.
Cats and Dogs: The Revenge of Kitty Galore, of course.
Yes, of course.
The classic.
I don't foresee him having a resurgence. We're not going to see a Chris O'Donnell renaissance. In keeping with the rules of this film series, this Batman film series that we are on number 4 of, Robin should have become Ice Cream Boy or something after falling into the vat of melted ice cream in this movie.
Right, yeah. You expect that. He just gets pushed. You're like, oh, bye, Robin. But it's like, no, it's just green goo.
yeah, it's just melted ice cream. It's fine. Okay, so there's a scene, and this is an editing thing, and it's very bad editing, and I get, again, this might be from fast tracking it, or just that everybody realized what was happening and decided they didn't want to come back or something. I don't know. But there's a scene where Robin is struggling under the water, where they clearly didn't get any shots of him being pulled back under, because he comes up and then they just reverse the shot as though he is being pulled back down.
I didn't even realize that. That's funny.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then later they use that same shot of him coming back up. So they show him coming up, getting pulled back down, and then a little bit, and then they show him struggling underwater for a little bit, and then they use the same shot of him coming back up as when he actually emerges from the water. So originally he only emerged one time, and they were like, man, we need a little bit more of a struggle, and just reversed it, which is great. And then this also could be under the logic stuff. It is a logic thing, but Batman disables Robin's motorcycle on that big statue at the beginning of the movie when they're chasing Freeze early on in the thing. Disables his motorcycle, and then Robin comes inches from sliding off of the edge of this huge statue, the finger of this huge statue. Which, like, what was Batman's plan there? Like, at least if he had jumped, he would have had a shot at surviving. Versus,
maybe he's like, he was an acrobat. Maybe he'll just figure it out. Maybe
he'll be fine. Oh, and he's almost fallen to his death plenty of times. Actually, he almost fell to his death a lot of times, and he always was fine. So,
does Batman actually care, though? I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing: my Batman
get
would
along
care.
Well.
So I don't know. That's our heroes.
Yeah. So just the characters in general, a very interesting group of characters, interesting crop of moments for sure.
Yeah, this movie's so good. All right, and then the last thing I have listed here in terms of what makes this movie great is, and we've covered about half of what I have here, and that's the dialogue.
Yeah,
a lot of it is ice puns, but there's more than that.
Yeah. Would you like to share some more lines? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't suppose they have fax machines on elephants. Was a line.
Great.
Bane, darling, I found a fellow who strikes my fancy, a cool customer. Yes, icy demeanor, no question. I should have put that with the ice puns, and I didn't.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. There's the exchange between Batman and Robin where Batman says, no beauty, and Robin says, just the beast, because then Bane shows up.
Yes, it's the King Kong riff.
which is fun.
Yeah. Cute.
Except it's wild. It's buck wild to me that Batman would say no beauty if he didn't know that there was going to be a Beauty and the Beast. If he did not know he was setting up a Beauty and the Beast or a Beauty and the Beast reference or a King Kong reference, whichever one you want to call that. It's wild that he would say no beauty.
Maybe they rehearsed it beforehand. They were like, oh, let's throw this in there.
This is what we're gonna do. Yeah, that's great. When Freeze and Ivy join forces, and Freeze says, Adam and evil.
That is
I
a
love
good
that.
one.
I love that
Adam and
line.
Evil is a good
I
one.
think I
Crazy
actually
is so
think
much better
about
than my
that
Arnold.
line
Your Arnold
probably.
is so good, Matt. Your Arnold is just spot on.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I actually think about that line probably more often than any of these, just randomly. Really, anytime I hear like an Adam and Eve reference, my mind goes to Adam and Evil. You're about to become compost, and I probably could have made a list of plant-based puns also,
Yeah.
and kept track of those, but I didn't. I'm sure there's a lot of
the
them.
thing is, Matt, I'm such a the dad joke is my signature. So like I love the puns. Like that's I think why I like this more than like even Batman Forever. Like I just love the puns because those to me are just like actually genuinely enjoyable, not because they're horrible, but because I'm like like I'm one of those guys that just like it works for me. So I can see why people do hate it, but I dig it. Yeah,
I dig it. Here's the thing: is that and this is one of those things where I don't know if I love it because it's bad or if I love it in spite of it being bad. I don't know where I land legitimately on puns like this, but I do know that I love them either ironically or unironically. But it doesn't matter because the love is the same. That comes from the same place in my heart.
right.
So I agree. I love it. Okay, so now we get to best and worst examples, or our best and worst thing. We already talked about our worst line of dialogue, right?
Yes.
Worst actor. Who was the worst actor?
I'm gonna go with because I think this character. I'm gonna go Chris O'Donnell. Because I think he's one of the titular roles, and his stuff just every time it's him speaking and talking, I want to fast forward because I'm like I just don't care enough about Batman or Robin in this case. Like all I want to do really is watch Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy do their thing because they understand the assignment so much. Whereas Chris O'Donnell, I'm just like doesn't do it for me.
Here's the thing. I have Arnold Schwarzenegger written down here, but I think you're right, and I think I'm going to change mine to Chris O'Donnell because he's just not very good. And
Arnold would be the one.
Arnold is bad, but he's also what's great about it. So it's like if he was good, it'd be a worse movie. So
Arnold's like the one that I would say is like my favorite performance, just because it's like the most memorable.
I will blanket the city in endless winter.
Okay, actor who elevated the material.
Ooh, why don't you take this one first? Because I have to think real quick about mine.
For me, it's easy. It's Michael Goff as Alfred Pennyworth.
Yeah,
I was
looking up his name. I didn't want to embarrass myself by not knowing it, but that's who I was looking for. Yeah, him and I think Uma Thurman does a good job too. But yeah,
I think Uma Thurman is good, but she is also going really over the top. And
Michael Goff gets it though. He understands.
He's been Alfred. He'd been out all four movies. He was Alfred all four movies. He's just about the only consistent thing, with the exception of. Probably Commissioner Gordon has been the same throughout all of them, even though I have feelings about him as Commissioner.
And
Gordon.
Not a huge role.
It's a small role. It's not memorable. I love Gordon so much that it's the fact that it's such an unmemorable, like it's such a nothing role in these movies, kind of bugs me a little bit. But Alfred is great, and even though it gets really saccharine. And it gets really just really sappy and just kind of almost fake sad, a lot of it toward the end there, especially. You just feel it because he's so good.
I was gonna say it kind of works because the actors are selling it, especially him and George Clooney, but also like honestly, it works for the style of the movie, like that it is a little more over the top and accentuated. Like
I agree.
This whole movie is over the top.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I think that even the sad parts are over the top is in keeping with the movie. However, I think that's why I say that he elevates the material because just because like even though it's over the top, you still feel it. Like it's like when he says I love you too to Bruce, like Bruce tells him I love you, old man. He's like, I love you too. Or when he tells him my only regret is that I never got to be out there with you. Oh man, like it legitimately makes me feel things.
That is legitimately good. Along with the Schumacher style, like that would be my other like legitimately good aspect of this movie that in any other movie would still work for sure.
Yeah. All right, so those are our best and worst for here. Now let's talk about legacy before we get on to the final stuff. So the legacy of this, it earned 42 million such and such opening weekend, making it the third highest opening weekend of 1997.
Cool. Do you know what the first two were? I'm assuming Titanic was one of them.
I didn't look up that, but yeah, Titanic and it's 1997, so probably Face Off, I imagine, or Men in
Maybe.
Black.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know which,
I don't
because the next thing is shortly after this movie came out, Face Off, Hercules, and Men in Black came out.
There you
So
go. This one just got swallowed up by so
it
many
just tanked
Yeah.
domestically after that.
Mhm.
It grossed 107.3 million in North America and 130.9 million internationally, which is 238.2 million total, which is, especially back then, like low for the budget that it was. It just didn't do great. Except they boasted the international a lot, but really neither amount was super great for the amount that it cost. The film has a 12% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which again I talked about this before. Is that okay? So actually, versus Batman Forever, I talk about how it's lower now because Rotten Tomatoes considers newer reviews versus reviews when it came out. I would imagine that this one's probably actually higher because there are so many people who love it in spite of, like, it was just
nostalgic purposes,
destroyed back then,
Mhm.
and it probably would not get as much as 12% if we just looked at what they talked about before.
I did look up the box office, and because when it came out, it was number 3 because Titanic hadn't come out yet, and Face Off hadn't come out yet. So at the time, it debuted in third behind Liar Liar and Lost World Jurassic Park. So those were the two before it, because it finished at number 9 of the whole year. But when it debuted in third of the third highest.
I gotcha. That makes sense.
Liar Liar, a Jim Carrey crossover. So there's a little bit of a connection to
I love that movie.
Forever. Yeah,
it's very funny. Yeah. In 2005, George Clooney said, "I think we might have killed the franchise," and called the movie a waste of money.
And we know what happened in 2005. We got another Batman from Nolan.
No kidding.
Revitalized it.
Later, he claimed to have apologized to Adam West for the film. Adam West, who played Batman in the 1960s, he apologized to Adam West for Batman and Robin. A sequel was planned called Batman Unchained that would have had a darker tone and feature the Scarecrow and Harley Quinn. And Harley Quinn was going to have been Joker's daughter rather than his love interest, and she was going to be like trying to kill Batman for killing Joker.
Yeah. Did we know who was going to play her, or who was?
No, we didn't know. They didn't get that far. But Scarecrow, we did know a little bit because originally, Nick Cage was going to be in Batman and Robin as Scarecrow in a bit part, which actually is what Coolio played. Okay. You're a young man, so I don't know if you know who Coolio is. Do you know who Coolio is? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I watched him on like Celebrity Food Network something at one point.
Yes, on Celebrity Chopped when he picked up the lemon and after the time and squirted it on there.
Yeah, I know Coolio. I'm not that young yet.
That was good.
I know Coolio.
Yeah. So anyway, the role that Coolio played was originally going to be
Scarecrow,
and that was going to be Scarecrow.
Cool.
But no mention of Harley Quinn, who that was going to be. But Harley Quinn was fairly new at the time because Harley Quinn was created for the animated series by Paul Dini. Who was actually the guy who wrote the Heart of Ice episode that the Mr. Freeze stuff was based on.
So he would have been perfect to bring this to life.
He created Harley Quinn for the animated series. So, but at this point, Harley Quinn was brand new. Also, nice. It was scrapped after the response to Batman and Robin. Okay, awards. I bet you can imagine which establishment gave this film awards. And it was actually nominated for Saturn Award for Best Fantasy Film.
Oh, okay. So you were misleading me, Matt.
It was nominated for a number of Razzies, which I will tell you about.
So
it was also nominated for like best makeup and best visual effects or something like that with the Satellite Awards as well. But the fact that it was nominated for best sci-fi / adventure or sci-fi / fantasy film or whatever is actually still kind of wild to think about.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'd do it.
Yeah.
Anything spicy.
And it was nominated for several Razzies, including Worst Picture, worst remake or sequel, worst reckless regard for human life, worst
That was a
director.
category?
Yeah, worst director. It's one they still do. I have to imagine that Man of Steel won it the year that he threw Zod into all kinds of buildings and didn't save anyone. Anyway, again, I'm projecting a lot. Sorry. It also was nominated for worst director, worst screen couple for Clooney and O'Donnell.
Okay. It was very
Worst,
void of romance. I was like, who's the other? Okay, I get it.
yeah. Worst screenplay. Two worst supporting actor nominations for Arnold and Chris O'Donnell.
Okay, I agree with one, not the other.
It was worst supporting. It was nominated for worst supporting actress for Uma Thurman. Worst song for "The Beginning Is the End Is the Beginning" by the Smashing Pumpkins, and it won a Razzie for worst supporting actress for Alicia Silverstone.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So it only won one. It was Alicia Silverstone.
Yeah, it only won one. All right, it's time for our train wreck moment. What was the most hilariously bad moment of this film that you just loved?
For me, it's the space surfing. It's just like one of those things that only could have existed in this movie, and it's one of those things where I love it because it's so freaking horrible.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
I showed my hand earlier. My favorite is, and again, my favorite thing in this, the very best thing in this movie is Bane in a trench coat and a fedora. So that leads us to scoring. If you don't know, we score out of 5. We score what out of 5? What out of 5? Whatever we want.
So whatever we want to do. And 5 correlates to like the most perfect, so bad it's good movie.
Yeah.
And if we actually genuinely think it's good or bad for the wrong or right reasons, we will put it at like a 1 star. But something in the middle gets something in the middle.
Right. 5-star is a movie that is absolutely bad, and its only redeeming thing is that it's entertaining because it's bad. 1 star is going to be something that's actually good, or really bad and boring, and we don't even like it because it's bad. So that's kind of where we go. That's the range for this movie. I'm actually going to give it. I'm going to give it 2. I'm going to give it 2 Freeze and Hell Batmans.
Nice.
Out of 5.
I was gonna say you took the number out of my mouth, but luckily I still have my ranking. It is 2 bat nips out of 2.
Okay, so now we talk about Mount Trashmore.
Yes. So currently on Mount Trashmore, we have the 4 movies we've covered. In Mount Trashmore, what it is basically our Mount Rushmore of horrible movies. So if a movie we think deems worthiness of being on Mount Trashmore, we have to kick one off now because we've had 4 episodes so far. So Tommy Wiseau's up for the room. He's like our George Washington. I don't think he's going anywhere. Birdemic is right next to there as Lincoln. I don't think it's going anywhere. But then we also have the Star Wars special, holiday special, and Face Off. Now, first we have to determine if Batman and Robin deserves to be one of the 4, or if it doesn't make the mountain. Do we think it at least makes 4?
I would argue that again, this is going to be similar to the movie that I'm going to say it's going to replace, that I think it should replace.
Yeah.
And that is when we put Face Off on there, we knew it wasn't going to last very long.
I was thinking the same thing. I think Face Off is the most genuinely like good of the bunch. Yeah. And this one is also good, I think, better than the other 3, but I think it's also good for the wrong reason. So I'm comfortable putting it on there in place of Face Off.
I agree.
All right, so there you go. Face Off is now off the mountain. We are recarving it. It is now The Room, Birdemic, Star Wars Holiday Special, and now Batman and Robin. That is your Mount Trashmore, the 4 faces that represent the worst in cinema, at least as far as we've covered. So there we go. That's your mountain.
I have a feeling that we're going to be replacing that with something else next month.
Maybe. We'll see.
As we are 420 blazing.
I was going to say, next month, April, and we're going to talk about a movie that is very, very apropos for the holiday that many of us celebrate, being 420, April 20th. Matt, why don't you tell everyone what movie we will be talking about next month?
Next month, we're going to be 420 blazing. Well, actually, we're not, because we're going to be watching a very, very instructional movie about why you shouldn't do marijuana, and that is Reefer Madness.
Madness.
If you look it up, it might be called Tell Your Children. So just everyone should know that.
Okay.
But it's called Reefer Madness, and it's not Reefer Madness the musical, which is a parody of this, and it is and it's a comedy. Don't do Reefer Madness the musical. You want Reefer Madness. As of right now, it's actually available a lot of places: Paramount Plus, Epix, Showtime, Hoopla.
We hope it's still there next month.
Showtime. Yeah, we hope it's all there.
If anything, watch
watch
it
it as soon as
now,
you can,
and
yeah.
and then yeah, and then
But
it
you can
won't-
rent it on Amazon for like $1 for $1. I think it's $1.99. So, yeah. So watch Reefer Madness and join us in April.
That's all I have. Just Batman and Robin. Go check it out because I think we gave some good points as to why we think it's actually genuinely good, despite its flaws and in spite of its flaws and because of its flaws. So yeah, I'd say it's one of the best superhero so bad it's good movies. And I honestly wouldn't even say it's the worst Batman movie, to be honest with you. That's another conversation for another time.
Which one is the worst Batman movie?
I don't want to say until I watch the Matt Reeves new one and the original 1966 or 60, because I don't want to. I don't want to say because I could be wrong. But I also don't want to hurt your feelings because I think it's Batman Forever.
Oh no,
But
that's not. Come on.
I also had to revisit Batman v Superman. That's the thing. I plan to watch a lot more Batman, but I'll tell you what, it's not. It's not the Nolan trilogy, and it's not the Lego Batman. Those four are like my top four forever.
We don't really have time for this, but I have feelings on Lego Batman as well. But
well, we'll talk about it off air. How about that?
Yeah,
Or
that's
maybe
fine.
if you think it's so bad it's good, we can save it for another day.
It's not so bad. It's good. It's actually reasonably good. Let me just tell you that the Lego Batman in the Lego movie is blasphemous, and it made me very angry when I saw that movie. So I told myself I was not going to watch the Lego Batman movie, and then I had kids who love Batman and love Legos, and so suddenly I had to take them to this movie.
There you
And
go.
I actually enjoyed it, although I don't love it as much as everyone else, again, because of the blasphemy. But it is, I do like that movie.
Yeah, and maybe I'll feel the same way if they ever make a Lego Chewbacca movie. In the meantime, there are socials down there. You can go check us out. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Framewreck.
What a story, Mark.